Okay, everyone, thank you for joining this live stream, live from Lebanon, from Beirut. I hope you can see me all right. My name is Hélène Franchino. I'm a visual journalist based in Istanbul, in Turkey. I'm originally from France. And I've been working with World Vision to gather stories of children or families who live in dangerous and fragile contexts. And Lebanon actually is one of them. Just to give you a little bit of background about how we set up this live, I originally wanted to do it from the field, from a refugee camp. The internet in Lebanon is spotty, not reliable. And so I thought, okay, maybe I can do it from the World Vision Lebanon office. This was not an option as well because there is an electricity issue in Lebanon. You can only have a few hours of electricity per day. Most of the companies or the people rely on generators to provide the electricity. These generators work with fuel, and there is a fuel shortage in Lebanon at the moment. So in the World Vision Lebanon office, the generator shuts down at 4:30, and after 4:30, there is no electricity anymore, there is no internet anymore. So this live will be done from my hotel, from the comfort of my hotel room. So I've been traveling for 2 weeks now with World Vision to Romania, to Ukraine, and for the past week to Lebanon, gathering stories, talking to people, and seeing firsthand the realities of what it's like to live as a refugee child living in a fragile context. And so I wanted to explain to you what it's like, for example, to leave everything behind and to see your life change in an instant, pretty much. For example, many children I've spoken with here in Lebanon, Syrian refugees, they have quite a similar story. They had a normal life. They were going to school, and then somehow the war started. Bombs started, coming in their, being dropped on their neighborhoods or their cities, etc. Their parents decided that it was too dangerous, and they had to leave. They had to flee in an instant. They had to grab their things and come to Lebanon, for example. For the context, there are about 800,000 Syrian refugees officially registered in Lebanon. Lebanon is a country of 4 million people. And for example, I was talking to Shaima, who is a 17-year-old Syrian teenager. And she just was telling me, and I quote her, that she never imagined that her life would be like this. For her, she wanted to become a nurse. Actually, she was going to school. She wanted to become a nurse. And now she lives in a tent. And sometimes she's sometimes in the morning when she goes to work, because now she works, she's wondering, is it my new life? Is it really happening to me? The fact that she had to leave everything behind, and she lost her childhood. She traded her life as a schoolgirl to her life as a laborer in a field who barely makes enough to meet the needs of her family. And 2 weeks ago, so when I was in Ukraine, we talked to a few internally displaced Ukrainians. And I met this little boy, Victor. He was 9, and he was with his father. They came to pick up some food parcel. And he was telling me that when they had to leave, they were from Kharkiv. And when they had to leave, when the Russians bombed at the beginning of the war, he took 3 things with him. The 3 things very important for him: he took his phone, he took his skate, and he took his bicycle. So, and then now they are in Chernivtsi, which is a city south of Ukraine. It is a safe area, and they are near the border with Romania. and now they have to start all over. So school-wise, it's the holidays anyway, but his father has to has found a little job, but it's not stable. He lost his other job. The new job that he found it's not stable at all. They had to find a new home, etc. So that's what it's like to leave everything behind. And yes, speaking of Ukraine, actually, the crisis in Ukraine is having ripple effect all across the globe. It makes that the situation of all the refugees in the world is somehow worsening. To give you an idea, the Ukraine is bordering the Black Sea, and now all the ports, Ukrainian ports are blockaded, and so the Ukrainian exports. Ukraine is a major exporter of cereals or fertilizer. All these exports are now cannot go through, and so now they have to go through land. And going through land, it doesn't go as fast, and so now the exports are trickling out. And for example, I was at the border between Romania and Ukraine, going into Ukraine, and we saw a line of about 20 kilometers long of trucks waiting in line to leave Ukraine, to cross into Romania, and then off to the rest of the world to export their goods. So I talked with truck drivers who were transporting chicken and tomatoes, cereals, things like that, and some had been waiting for about 6 days to cross the border. And so Ukraine is not exporting as it used to be, and as a consequence, it puts many countries who are relying on these exports in a very difficult position. And Lebanon, for example, is one of them. Lebanon is relying on about 78% of wheat imports that come to Lebanon come from Ukraine. Now these imports hardly make it to Lebanon, and so it's having a very dire impact on the population. It's this kind of disruption are how can I say dramatic for Lebanon, who is already quite a fragile country. The prices are skyrocketing, and on top of that, you already have an economic crisis, a political crisis in Lebanon for the past couple of years. And so if you add this layer of exports not getting there anymore, not getting through, to an existing layer of political crisis and economic crisis, it's having explosive effects, I want to say, not doing a bad pun, given that it's in August 2020 in Beirut, you had the biggest non-nuclear explosion that happened. And so, for example, in Lebanon, to give you an idea, before the economic crisis, the average salary would be about £3 million. £3 million, that used to be about $2,000. And that was the average salary. You could perfectly live very well in Lebanon with $2,000. But now £3 million is only $100. So if you can imagine that a lot of people who were middle class, who could afford normal things, food, things for the babies, etc., and now they only earned the equivalent of $100, which means that they cannot really afford anything anymore, and it's dramatic for the Lebanese population. Almost there is no longer a middle class. A lot of people are struggling. A lot of people, for example, cannot afford school for their children. They are pulling their children from school because they cannot afford anymore the school buses or the stationery, things like that. So even in the Lebanese population, people are struggling. You see more and more children who are no longer attending school, but instead are going to work. So if you can imagine that for the refugee population, things are 10 times worse, probably. The few jobs that they are allowed to do, such as collecting bottles, What else? Working in fields. Their daily rate might be £50,000 or £100,000. That's the salary that they can bring back home every day. For example, £50,000. Now it's only $2. So I spoke with many children who had to work. They can only bring back home about $2 a day. And obviously, it's not enough to be able to afford anything. As a comparison, a bag of bread is 17,000 Lebanese pounds. So one salary of £50,000 can buy you only 3 bags of bread per day, and that's it. And so a lot of parents don't have the choice. They are resorting more and more to putting a lot of children to work. And so a lot of children that I've met this week in Lebanon actually working. Some are attending school, some are no longer attending school. I think of Jamila, who is a 13-year-old Syrian teenager. She stopped attending school. She works in a field every day. And she brings back home about £50,000, which is $2, as I said. And she has 14 brothers and sisters, and they are relying on her to be fed. And what she's bringing back home is hardly enough to buy diapers or food or anything. And the sad thing is that she feels responsible for her siblings, and she feels very bad that all the work that she's doing and the sacrifices is not enough. And she was telling me, I met her 4 days ago, she was telling me that for the last few days, she only could eat bread and drink water. Bread and water, that's all she could eat. And she and her family. That was very, very sad. And so I also wanted to tell you about what it's like to be a refugee in Lebanon, what is life like. It's every country who received Syrian refugees, it's different. For example, in Lebanon, most of them live in what is called ITS, informal tented settlement. They are in rural areas, they occupy lands. And for example, in the Bekaa Valley, which is about halfway between Beirut and Damascus, you have many ITSs with Syrian refugees. So they are all gathered there. They live in tents, UNHCR tents. They have many aid organizations provided latrines. So it's like white cubicles. It's common latrines. A few tents also have their own latrines. They don't really have access to running water, and that's I mean, that's it. The children sometimes go to school, most of them don't. The adults, some work, some don't, and that's it. They are just waiting there. It's quite sad. And also in the north, you have refugees who are living in a more urban context. For example, in Akkar, which is in the north of Lebanon, when you go towards Homs in Syria. And so they live in urban settlements, I will say, and they are not necessarily better off, actually, because many live in unfinished buildings. I'm just taking the volume, sorry. Many live in unfinished buildings, and on top of that, they have the bills to pay. So they have the rent, they have the little electricity they can get, water, etc. And so this is a big challenge for them, because as you know, the work that they can do is not enough to pay the bills, to pay anything pretty much. And so I met a family. It was on Friday. The daughter works. Her name is Esra. and she was explaining to me that her salary is about 50,000 Lebanese pounds, and so it's about $2. And as I said, it's enough to buy about 3 bags of bread, and that's it. And her father was telling me that the rest is on credit. So they go to the store, they buy groceries, it's on credit, and he was telling me that actually they are in debt. What else? I met also Ala, who is a 15-year-old teenager, Syrian teenager. He works in the morning, he carries watermelons, he works in a wholesale fruit and vegetable market. He works in the morning, and all the money that he makes, he gives it to his father, to his parents, and then he manages to go to school in the afternoon. So he's having a very long day, working in the morning, going to school in the afternoon. But that's their daily life. But like access to jobs is a big challenge for the adults. Access to education is also a big challenge for the children, because most of them also have to work, and so sometimes they say that they want to quit school so that they can work more and get more money, so that their family can afford more things. So it's quite heartbreaking to see that they are ready to sacrifice their schooling in order to survive, pretty much. On Friday morning, I met a 7-year-old Abed, and he was taking education courses through World Vision, and he made a point in showing me all the French that he took, the French lessons that he took, because we're in Lebanon. And while I was chatting with him and also chatting with his father, he took a notebook and he wrote the numbers in French from 1 to 100, and he made a point in showing them to me. It was very nice, very cute, because despite the challenges that they are facing in accessing education, they have hopes, they have motivation, they have dreams. Most of them want to become doctors, nurses, even astronauts. Next point, I wanted to talk to you about the impact of your donation. So obviously your donation is very important for World Vision, but also the refugees that can benefit from them. Each theater is different. Each response is different. Each country is different. So your donation will have an impact that is different, whether it's in Ukraine or Lebanon or even the DRC. For example, in Ukraine, it's an emergency response. For example, the World Vision will focus on setting up a supply chain that will procure basic foods such as rice, pasta, oil, canned meat, and getting it as fast as possible to the local population. And that's what I witnessed when I was in Romania and Ukraine. We saw warehouses with lots of kilograms and kilograms of rice, of pasta, and we saw volunteers loading them on trucks, with trucks transporting them across the border to Ukraine. We saw volunteers gathering the food and putting them in individual food packages, and we saw distributions of food packages to Ukrainians, to internally displaced Ukrainians. And then actually some packages were going further north and even to the east, where the fighting is happening. That's Ukraine. In Lebanon, where I am at the moment, the response is different, because it's a more long-term response, because the refugee crisis is now 10 years old. So it will be more focused on education, providing courses to the children, whether face-to-face or with COVID-19 online. It is also focused on hygiene with activities called WASH, which is teaching the children the importance of hygiene, the importance of washing their hands so that they don't catch disease. And it was very important, as you know, during COVID-19. And also, World Vision is providing psychosocial support to these children who have been through a lot, who have seen a lot. I will just give an example that Shaima, a 17-year-old teenager, she was telling me that she's from Raqqa, which used to be the capital of ISIS. And at some point on the square nearby where she used to live, they would put decapitated heads on the stick. So she was 8 or 9 when she saw this. So this obviously leaves a trace. This is not normal to see for a child. So that's why World Vision is providing psychosocial support for these children to make sense of what they have seen, but also to inform them about what constitutes danger, what is normal, what is not normal, how to show love to their parents, inform them about their rights. That's the few things that, for example, World Vision is doing in Lebanon. In DRC, it will be another response. Your donation will have another purpose. For example, DRC, which is a huge country and with different needs, but for example, in the east, you have some armed militias which have been recruiting. Sorry, 1 second. Sorry about that. Armed militias which have been recruiting child soldiers. And so World Vision is working with these children to try to reintegrate them in the society, after they leave these militias, after they flee, actually. And so it's teaching them it's giving them some vocational courses, for example, how to be a carpenter, how to set up your own shop, etc. So it's working with children to do that. And also it is, for example, providing nutritious food to school children so that they can grow into healthy adults. But also many children in rural areas, for example, only have 1 meal per day. So it's very hard for them to stay focused at school. And so World Vision makes sure that they have an extra meal at school so that they can stay alert, stay focused, and also, fill their belly, because they only have children and they should have 3 meals per day. Yes. I will take questions now. If you have any questions, please, in the chat, you can feel free to ask. So I got a question about child marriage. So sorry about the phone. I'm in my hotel room, and I think they are calling me because I think my taxi is here, because I'm going to rush to the airport afterwards. But I got a question about child marriage. So yes, I've seen a lot of instances of child marriage. And unfortunately, it's all too common with refugees and Syrian refugees. It is because they don't really have ways to support themselves financially. Some parents resort to marrying off one of their daughters when she's a teenager, so that it's one mouth less to feed. And so a few days ago, I met with Mayar and Bushra, 2 Syrian young women. Both of them were married already. Bushra is 20, Mayar is 21. They were married when they were 15, and both of them have 2 children already now. So they were still teenagers when they got married, and now they're already young mothers. Both of them regret getting married. However, you have to understand that they don't really have the ways of, they don't really have, how can I say? They don't know what's possible for them. So what is their horizon? Their horizon is that they live in an informal tent settlement. There is nothing for them to do. They haven't been to school or hardly. They cannot have a job. So, you know, when they are offered that they can go and get married so that it's easier for their family, some of them say no. 1 second. Hello? Thank you. Sorry about that. So yes, child marriage is actually all too common, unfortunately. And yes, is there any other question? Feel free to type in the chat. And I'm checking on my side. Thank you. So I will sign off here. It's been already 27 minutes. Thank you for listening. I just wanted to say as a conclusion that you can play your little part from wherever you are. You can write to your MP. You can donate by clicking the link in the description. And thank you for joining on this World Refugee Day. Thank you for tuning in, and please take care. Bye.